That's life.
You'll find no photograph of me where I am smiling about meeting with the Israelis. I did not smile because it was not a meeting about delivering a message that involved a smile. I did not smile. I did not smile. I did not smile.
Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro.
Warzone, job done, strefa wojny ostro. Dealer na półpiętrze, ćwiczył to rzemiosło. Od kiedy pamiętam, przez ulicę prosto. Chyba że 3/4, wyjebał z winta pozdro. Z fartem. Strefa wojny ostro, pięści nie wystarczą. Zbrojone flaty od co? Biegasz tu bez sprzętu, bezbronny Jasiu wąs stąd. Chyba że na koncie, odbicie chcesz mieć wąsko. Nawet małolaty, zarobek ciągle non stop. Nie ma na czas stary, dziurawe na chybonton. Nie umiał zachować, jebany zwykły ponton. Dmuchany latawiec, za dużo gadał mordo. Mordor, szare twarze ordo. To żaden porządek, bałagan, burdel, porno. Dzwonią telefony, trap house'y na okrągło. Wiadomość ze strefy, nazywanej Warzone. Życie na kredycie albo kurwa lecisz pod prąd. Szczupaka nie świruj, gdy jesteś zwykłą plotką. Pierdolą 3x3, ufając marnym plotkom. Z sezamkowej gang, streamingi w stringach go go.
Oh my god, at the casualty ward with the samurai sword, shouting fuck drug squad. Who the fuck is this? Calling 6 in the morning. Edinburgh City and the dealers are warring. Been up all night snorting, Osman is a warning. Pitbull, big two, love the smelly potent in the morning. Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro, watch your tone, bro, watch your tone. Lips zipped, I be bucking in a fucking hurry. With my eyes all blurry, with the coffins I've buried. And my cells not even padded, with the coffins I've carried. Don't get me started, pass the Bacardi, pass the Charlie. They say money makes the world go round. Good cause I'm in a mood and bad land bound. On the creep, 6 feet deep with the stash in the ground. Put your hands up, don't make a fucking sound. Shots, fire man down in my Edinburgh town. Where the dealers like to clown, I'm like point 1, point 2. Fuck me, fuck you, point 1, point 2, point 3. Fuck me, won't let the money corrupt me.
He's Gary Fraser, let him show you how to hustle. Nice school, watch you gonna lose it in a tussle. Middle class cunts live a life in a bubble. Hit them then they crumble. Survival of the fittest in this concrete jungle.
I'm Gary Fraser, let me show you how to hustle. Nice school, watch you gonna lose it in a tussle. Middle class cunts live their life in a bubble. Hit them then they crumble. It's survival of the fittest in this concrete jungle. A man, he stopped me in the streets today. Asked there's any drugs that I could sell him. I looked him in the eyes and I wished that there was something I could tell him. But my thoughts are consumed, I was doing my log. Walking through the scheme and my sword's not even talk. So 8/8 and the sun's not even up. They're looking at me like I'ma come up. sundown to sun up and sun to run up. I'm like, mum, I'm famous, I blame this on shameless. My mind you can't tame, less accomplices nameless. You know how the pain does, with us or against us. Blistering on the trainers like fuck how they feeling. I'm gone back to dealing, a stash in the ceiling. Well, I've been stabbed twice, but guess you're still breathing. Proof if I needed a reason. Do my bit, well we call it open season. Scheme, soldiers on assignment. Violent environment, poverty's a whoop it, come and try it. Poverty's a bullshit, let's fucking riot. Poverty's some bullshit, let's fucking riot. Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro, watch your tone, cause you listen on the phone. Where we come from, it's like a fucking war zone. Bro, watch your tone. Okay. We're here. A bit hurried. Morning, Rona. Morning to you. It's Monday. It's Friday. That's how mad I am at the minute. It's Friday. It's the 8th of November. Welcome to What the X. And to say I was in a bit of a mad panic this morning would be an understatement. But I've managed to get here, and if we just bear with ourselves. What are we saying, Rona? Are you the only person joining us in the chat this morning? Perhaps I should have been a bit more proactive. Oh, there's more people here. People of the world. Morning to see you, Katrina. Good to see you as well. Right, well, without much further ado, there's some interesting stuff been happening, and I've got an interesting morning. Ecorp W, morning Doreen, morning to you. The names are flooding in as we speak. Up and young, good to see you. So this morning, in my usual lax style, I didn't even manage to explain. They're all here. Morning, all. Bob, that hustings looked wild on Wednesday night. It was pretty mad. Madame Guy, good to see you. We'll get on to the hustings in a bit. And but before we do that, I'm delighted to let you all know that this morning we have our inaugural live What the X guest. And if I can move my mouse to the right, James Craig Page, lovely to see you as well. If I can move my mouse to the unmute button, then I can unmute their microphone. And if I can find my other button, I can bring them into our scene, which would be, I'm just a little bit here. So here we have Mr. Gary Fraser. Mr. Gary Fraser. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining me this morning. You are the first What the X live guest, so I hope you feel all right about that, being thrown in at the deep end this morning.
I am honoured.
I am honoured. I'm truly honoured. Is that dub music too loud for you, Gary, or is that?
No,
is that
that's
okay?
good. That's all right.
It's okay. It's a Friday. I tend to play dub on a Friday to try to cultivate a chilled atmosphere, but
having tripped over those cables a few minutes ago, I think you know that I'm a little bit stressed. Anyway, as you can see, people, we're joined with Gary Fraser this morning. And the reason Gary's popped in, he's got a few things to talk about. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the situation that happened in Edinburgh over the last few nights. And I don't know whether or not we'll get through the weekend. We can't hear the music, I've been told. We can't hear the music. You can hear it now, though. You can't tell me you can't hear it now, because you can hear it now. Again, professional streamer in that, you know. So, what happened in Edinburgh over the last couple of nights, and potentially we've got the weekend coming up now, which means I don't know whether or not they think they've knocked it all on the head, but this has become a bit of a, shall we say, a capital tradition over the last few years, where the young team have been, FireworX have always been a bit of a thing in North Edinburgh, and then it sort of moved to Niddrie, didn't it? That's where all the sort of trouble started happening there. But there's been quite a lot of reaction in the news and the media, a lot of condemnation for the stuff that's going on. There's definitely been some incidents that are genuinely unpleasant to see, folk getting fireworks put through their letterbox and mobs kind of running around, but then there's a heavy police presence as well. And you know, it's debatable how effective that is. So Gary, you've joined me this morning. I know you've got a lot to say about this, you've got a lot of opinion about this, so how would you like to... First of all, I should also introduce Gary. Gary is a director, he's an artist, he's a musical artist. He is, I suppose, would you include activist in your role of titles?
Unwitting activist, I think.
Unwitting or unwilling.
Unwilling, yes.
What's
reluctant.
Funny, that's exactly what I describe myself as well as at times. It's almost a sense of like you find yourself saying stuff because nobody else is doing it, you know, and it's not necessarily what would be your first choice, but it tends to be what you end up finding yourself doing. So what's your thoughts then on this situation in Niddrie? Because I know as well you had actually... You were supposed to have been involved to some extent to try to alleviate some of this, and that never materialised. So
yeah, well, I met with the Violence Reduction Unit in January. So the authorities, the police, etc., they all knew what was going to happen. So when I met with them, there was talk of getting funding to do a diversionary project, and that fell through. And part of my thing with that falling through was like I sent them an email back, just basically saying to them like they're complicit in this as well. Like, but for me, it's a class issue, because with youth services and other types of services being absolutely annihilated over the last however many years by successive governments and politicians and councillors, etc., you've just got this weird situation where you've got these kids who've basically got fuck all apart from drug dealing and Snapchat and electric bikes. Like, that's all they've got now. And now, in this time in November, is when they react out and basically do what they're doing. But like, for me, we ignore the leadership in the communities, the real leadership in the communities, which is their uncles, their mums and dads, their cousins. Like, why do we not empower these communities? And how come when places like Poulton, Muirhouse or Niddrie and Gilmerton, when they put a bonfire together, the authorities very quickly stamp it out? And when I was a child, a long time ago, like, bonfire night was one of the best times in the community, because everybody would fling their old furniture out, you would take all the stuff out and you put it on the fire, and there'd be a community aspect to it. But like, that is so far removed now that what you see now has got nothing to do with bonfires night. It's just loads of kids who are now on the receiving end of this generational trauma, and there isn't a lot done, really. And I just think it's a sad situation when you've got councillors like Cammy Day and the rest of them that use this language, what's his name, Alex Cole Neal, is that the guy's name?
Alex Cole Hamilton, I think,
Yeah.
is this guy.
Yeah.
Gary, can you just sit a wee bit forward, just so I can catch you on that mic a wee bit better? Just that's fine. No,
Is that better now?
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
And so the language that they use is very military. Like, we're going to take the fight to these people and these hardcore offenders. It's just the way they speak is very military-esque, and I just think that they're speaking about children who essentially have been let down and abandoned by not just society, but like these councillors who just seem to come up with the same shite every 4 years on how they're going to tackle these guys. And it's the usual: we're going to ban fireworks, we're going to jail the offenders, we're going to etc., and nothing really gets done. And I just think it's a sad situation.
For real. Shall we take a wee look and see what Cammy Day said in the council yesterday? I haven't actually listened to his full thing. He speaks for a few minutes. Let's have a wee listen to see what Cammy Day was saying in response to this yesterday at the
morning
council.
After
so he is here.
Bonfire Night, and last week actually after the 31st, I coordinated a meeting with the fire service, the police service, the Proctor Fiscal, the Lothian Association Lothian Clubs, the chief executive from the council, and a number of our directorate key colleagues who were on Gold, Silver Command during the last week, particularly on,
Can you hear him now?
on FireworX Night. We discussed a number of issues that have happened in the last few days, that a number of the people involved, be that young people or adults, who have been arrested and held in prison pending trial before jury. These are people who threw rocks through the front windscreen of a police car and injured a WPC. These are people who have smashed up at least 16 buses in the city and terrorised the bus drivers. I went down to meet the bus drivers, and I went out with their support team the night before, and to hear drivers who are scared, women drivers scared to drive their buses and do their job because of the impact of a small minority, and I should make that point, a small minority, but a growing small minority of young people in the east and in the southwest of the city who created an absolutely despicable night here in the capital. It is the worst disorder the police have seen, and that came from the commander for Edinburgh, the worst disorder they've seen. Hence why we've asked the Procurator Fiscal Service to fast track these to the justice system, whichever part of the justice system that is, and that people are dealt with appropriately. Whether that's restorative justice or criminal justice or prison for some people, all these options should be looked at. We're keen to work with, as we did this year, the Lothian Association Youth Clubs to provide additional funding to support young people across the city to be involved in other activities rather than gather in the numbers of 40 and attacking our buses and fire service. I think later on there is a motion on this and an amendment which I hope will agree that I will host a local meeting with local members and key stakeholders, as we did last year, to look at what more we can do. And I think we need to ask the wider community as well to play their part in helping us resolve this going forward. It can't be the new norm in Edinburgh that come the end of October we accept that public servants are attacked doing their job. 10,000 bus journeys were not able to be made because of the removal of the bus services across the city. So 10,000 people couldn't get to the hospital, couldn't get home from work, and couldn't go and visit their family and friends and provide care because of the actions of a small minority. It is deplorable, and I'm sure Councillor Matisquello will join me in condemning their behaviour and attend the sessions we hold locally.
Right, what's your response to Cammy Day talking there?
Right, well, this is the same Cammy Day that was there 5, 6, 7 years ago talking about the motorbike crimes in North Edinburgh. Like, this is just carbon copy of the same shite that he was talking 5, 6 years ago. There's nothing new here. And the diversionary tactics, like what they're talking about, like we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Why wait until they smash up buses, until they wreck their communities, until they're fully self-hate, and then turn around and say we've got all this funding? Like, you had the last year to do this and to put this and implement this and put it in place. Like, there's no excuse for what these wee cunts are doing. Like, there's no justification like putting fireworks through people's letterboxes. There's no justification the reckless behaviour, attacking bus drivers. So, like, I'm not here to defend people that are doing that, but like, I am here to defend the way we've treated them over the last 5 years, 10 years, and how we got here. Like, they same council people that are standing up and can fast track people through the criminal justice system. If these were young guys of mixed race or of colour, you would say it's racist that you can fast track a certain group through the criminal justice system. It's not. It's a real class issue. Like, for me, when you look at the amount of money that's spent in that night, like, surely you could easily redivert money to these communities and redesign services. Like, there's no point giving money to the same existing services that aren't working. Like, our services do not work. Our mental health services are not working. And you need to have more local people empowered so they can organise their own bonfires night. Like, do we not trust people in Nidri and Muirhouse to run their own bonfires night, but we trust people in Bearsden and Morningside to run their own bonfires night? Like, it's a ridiculous situation. Like, I was at Morningside Primary School, and somebody that I know is there, and I just feel like the class difference between Morningside and Nidri on places and nights like this, like, the police officers didn't want to be doing there getting pelted with fireworks. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And I just think that there's just that ridiculous situation, and we are not doing anything about it. Like, this lip service that's happening, these wee guys are already expecting to go to jail. These wee guys are already expecting a life of crime. These wee guys are already expecting, like, the trauma that runs with them. Like, they're so high up on the ACEs charts that it's incredible. So I just think to myself, like, we need to look at the underlying issues of what's going on, rather than trying to treat the symptoms on 3 nights of the week and get all the headlines. Because these guys, as much as they say that they're there for the people, these politicians and councillors, they're not there for the people. Like, for them, the system's not broken. The system's broken for these kids,
Definitely.
but the system's not broken for them.
Definitely.
And these kids, like, don't get me wrong, these kids, they're not every kid there is a children of addicts, but, like, there's massive implications on our drug services, our mental health services, our criminal justice services, our tagging services, our probation services. Like, they don't work, and they're not working. So there needs to be a culture change. Like, for me, if you run a service in Nidri from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night, it would work much more effective than university educated people coming in between 8 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon and leaving and going back to Happyville. Like, we've created the ghettos and we're not doing anything about it, and it's just going to be the constant headline after headline, sensationalism after sensationalism, where guys like Cammy Day, who have done nothing about the motorbike crimes, who have done nothing about all that stuff, and are now, like, sitting in the council offices, and I just feel like it's a ridiculous situation.
Couldn't agree more. It seems that, like, you know, when we're of similar ages, and when you were growing up back in our day, you know, it was like probably one of the most fun nights of the year was fireworks night, but it seemed like every community would have a bonfire, every community would have fireworks. It was so it wasn't a sense that, you know, this was just an exclusive thing for certain areas. It seemed to me that they banned all fireworks sales in those areas. And did that mean that they weren't allowed any organised events either? Were you aware of any of that? Was that the case?
Nah, I just feel like say in Muirhouse, for example, I watched, like, I was training that night, but I managed to get to the bonfire at the end of it, and it was like, people made their own bonfire, their kids were there, they supervised it, they didn't need all the health and safety regulations that came with all the shite, and the council officials were coming down and they'd put up like they put up like posters and basically says like antisocial gathering, antisocial behaviour, there'll be none of this, none of that, and the people down there just quote the posters and put it on the fire, and you're like, do you know what I mean? It's like we didn't trust people in these schemes to be organised or grouped together, and it's the same with COVID. When COVID was there, these groups were not allowed to gather in more than this, and they were used COVID as an excuse, but it's really a repressive system on them, an oppressive system on them, and that for me is part of why we're here. Like when I was younger, you would have a community police officer, a liaison, and somebody who would take us swimming. Could you imagine a local busy taking these guys swimming now? It's unimaginable.
Totally.
But we didn't have that sense of community. We just have a them and us situation, and we have these situations now. And I just feel like we're not looking at the sin. We're looking at the sinner, and it's a lot easier to stand on a soapbox talking about how you're going to jail these people, evict these people. They're already expecting the jail, and they're already at the constant threat of homelessness, the stress that these families face. And this is no excuse. This is not an excuse. But the constant stress that these guys are on, poverty is part of the problem. But we didn't even admit that there's poverty in Edinburgh. It's a tourist city, and it's great. There's a castle, and you've got all this stuff. But Edinburgh's not for people in Edinburgh anymore. It's like, that's why you've got this situation where there is lack of education, lack of real opportunities to go to university. There's no, even for 10, 15 years ago, there's no a lot of routes out of that anymore. And that's probably one of the things that need to change. And look, these wee guys are a psychologist's wet dream. They've got the disorders and all the other stuff that's there is incredible. So I just feel like we're not really looking at what's wrong. We're just sensationalise it, and we knew this was going to happen. And for Cammy to turn around and say this is the worst that it's ever been, well, that's funny, because when I was listening to BBC radio, they were saying it wasn't as bad as last year. So these guys need to make up their mind when they're talking like this. Is it the worst it's ever been? Was it worse than last year?
Yeah,
so it's cross wires, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
I heard the same. I heard the same that some folk were saying that it wasn't as bad as last year, but then Cammy's come out and said it was the worst. And then he's saying it's a small minority, but then it's a growing small minority, whatever that means.
Well, how do you get to a situation where the police put zonal policing in, where youth's only allowed to travel to this area, to that area, to this area, to that area? They then kettlebell like families who come out. So it means that if you come from Nidri, you and your family can't go out and see any fireworks. You and your family can't come out and see any bonfire. And you can't do anything. If you're standing there with your kids and somebody flings a firework at you and your kids, you can't go up and fucking slap them on the side of the head and say, hey you, get yourself together. There's none of that anymore. There's just, so I just feel like the police tactics do not work. And it's obvious that they do not work. And for the price of putting that police helicopter up, and for the price of putting all these riot police for Orange Scotland, that's a game. That creates that's exciting. If all you've got in your life is fucking drug addiction, mental health, poverty, if all you've got is a struggle, why would you not react on the nights? It's the same with the wee guys on the motorbikes. Why would you not jump on the back of a motorbike? It might be the only freedom that you have for PTSD and for all the other shit of the day. And again, this isn't excusing anybody. Everybody is accountable for your own actions in life, whatever that may be. And it might be these wee guys end up with drug habits, it might be they end up in the jail, a lot of them will end up dead. Like in a few years' time, they're part of the drug death statistics. You know, right now they just think that they're no junkies because they smoke all the weed. You know what I mean? And their brains are fried.
Yeah, and even the weed they're smoking is insane compared to what weed used to be. You know, this Star Dog and the spice stuff and that, it's absolutely bonkers. You know, a couple of comments here, Gary. We've got Katrina says, she says, trial before jury. That's solemn procedure. Serious prison sentences if found guilty. It's outrageous that there is no community-led youth work. Gary is 100% right. Curveball. Social media ablaze with pet owners attacking any fireworks, including organised display. Someone else, I live in an estate where neighbours are mouthing off about neighbours who have the cheek to let off fireworks on the 5th of November. Okay, 10,000 buses or 10,000 people? I don't know. I think he said there was 10,000 bus journeys that had been affected. But this is the thing that I thought was interesting was that you had first-hand knowledge of them, you know, of an attempt to try to create some type of positive project in the area to alleviate it, and then that was just patched basically, and as you say, how much does it cost to put the helicopter in the sky? How much does it cost to bring all those police out? You know, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. There's also, I imagine, I don't know, some of those police will be on, you know, overtime, double time, triple time, whatever. It's coming up to Christmas. It's not the worst pay packet, is it? You know what I mean? It kind of go out there. And you said you were down at Morrison's.
I was just about to say, I was laughing because at 5 o'clock at night, on the, when was it, the 1st or the 2nd of November, I'm in Morrison's at Granton. The police come into Morrison's looking like storm ship troopers. They're growling. Their body language is just like provocative. So I'm watching, not just myself, because obviously I'm not going to stand there and be intimidated by somebody, either police or no police. So like when they're coming in, like growling at everybody, like not a single smile between them, I can see people from my area then putting their back up, and then so everybody starts becoming masculine because nobody wants to back down. And that was the precursor to it all. So you know that these guys are coming in, they're not happy. And that's what I says to one of the police officers, you think the amount of overtime that you're on, that you'd be a wee bit more happier. And they're not, because they didn't want to be there. That was written all about their faces. Like they're up for the 1st to the 6th of November. And I'm not even sitting here saying that all police are bastards, because that's not the case. And no, all these wee laddies are wee bastards. Some of them are, and some of the police are. You know, it's not black and white. If you're dealing with complex needs, it's complex answers. So it's not just like there's one answer, like that's it. It's done now. We've got an answer for it all. But I just feel like it's the same again. It's I see a different world for what a lot of people see, because I get to see it from both sides. I mean, you've got police officers like shouting at the young team, calling them like, what is it, like, you junkie bastards, your family's full of junkies, your whole family died of AIDS. Like, I've got video footage there of the police shouting that at the kids. You didn't see the Evening News printing that. No. You didn't see Cammy Day standing up talking about that. Like, you know, so it's just, these kids and these families are so marginalised and so isolated that just going up the city centre can be traumatic. And I know that sounds daft, because most people think going up the city centre is amazing, it's beautiful, it's Edinburgh, it's picturesque, it's quaint, it's all this stuff. But for these wee guys, that's not the case. For these wee guys, they should not be up there, the police say. What are you doing up here? Like, there's a massive class divide in this city, and the best thing about Bonfires Night for me is it exposes it. Because even when you see the way BBC Scotland report it, it's like, it's the same way they report the shit in Israel and Palestine. It's like, oh, in Edinburgh there was 4 instances of fireworks getting out of control in these youths, and also in Clydebank this happened, in Glasgow this happened, in Pollokshields this happened. So they have to counter it to make it look as though the capital's not that bad. And it's the same like when they go, an Israeli soldier shot 6 Palestinians while one got a fucking toe cut off. Do you know what I mean? It's like so disproportionate the way they report it. But it's our media. Our media are just complicit in it as well, because they didn't stay in these areas. They're not held accountable for the way they write about it.
No, 100%. I think the thing about Edinburgh that I've noticed, you know, is that the class divide always existed in Edinburgh, but in the last say 15 years, it's exponential. It's become incredible. It used to be, well, first of all, the town is essentially an economic no-go zone for a lot of people these days. There's no point in really coming up into town. You're not really welcome there unless you've got a significant kind of wad of cash on you. You just do anything really. It's not feasible. It's been gentrified in all over the place. This is the ideologue Paul Lawrence, the placemaking ideologue who's behind this. The city's been ripped really away from the people who traditionally were part of this city. There was always a good social mix in Edinburgh. You know, when we were growing up, you go up Princess Street, you go up whatever, you go up the town, you bump into folk. And even so much as, you know, I've made this point that, like, Glasgow, it seemed that the schemes were always kind of like, boundaries where there were no-go zones. You wouldn't cross from one scheme into another or something like that. Edinburgh never really felt like that for me. It was always like you could always go to a scheme somewhere, and because of the nature of the town, you would know somebody that was a cousin of somebody, or somebody went to school with somebody else or whatever like that. So there was a sense that it might not be the safest thing to do, depending on who you were. But it was never like an impossibility. There was always a mix that seemed to happen. Whereas I think now that there's a real sense that if you're in the scheme, you're much more ostracised. I mean, Brad used to make that point about, you know, there's kids in the schemes who haven't even seen the castle or you know, gone into town, and there's a lot of truth in that. You know, it just seems more and more that there's an ostracisation there, and the council are actually those that have the architects of it to a large extent, really. You know,
it scares them. Like anybody who can pull a group of these guys for a scheme together, the authorities are absolutely shit scared of something like that. But like, and for me, like, the life that these wee guys live, it's not a nice life. Like, they didn't want to live that life. I'm not giving a fuck who you are. Like, nobody wants to live the way these wee guys live. And it just feels like hope is a word that very rarely gets used, you know. And like, the more that we've made everything unaffordable, like, we have 24-hour mass media selling us stuff, marketing us stuff, which all costs money. So materialism makes us feel shit about the stuff that we can't have. And then when you've got like a complete breakdown in education in places like the WEC, Niddrie, Craig Royston, like, our schools are fucking mental health asylums. They're no good schools. Like, education is not the same as what it is in different parts of Edinburgh. Like, the disparity in the education. So again, it becomes this further compounded thing, and that's where addiction thrives. That's where it's easier to get high than what it is to strive and achieve. And it's a sad situation, man. It's a real sad situation.
Definitely. Got a few more comments coming in here. Katrina Grant says, you can have fireworks that don't bang. There can be compromises. Halloween and Guy Fawkes Night has always been anarchy, but this is communities breaking down over authoritative responses. Ali Channel says, we need strong voices like yours to raise awareness about fearmongering, intentional destruction of city communities instead of systemic supports, funding and compassion for poverty and mental health. Katrina Grant says, it was telling Cammy Day had nothing from the council to offer, no community educational social work. It shows how much the council are disconnected. And over on X, we've got some comments there as well. Nigel says, who was in the police force, I miss teaching young cops to treat folk with respect. Some cops are fucking awful. And that's from a copper, an ex-copper. So, yeah, I think, how do you think these, I mean, somebody was saying to me that they were blaming the fact that there was free bus pass, free travel for the young team, that this was the issue, then that was what needed to stop this. It seems to be that they're looking at all the wrong factors to try to alleviate this.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's the same again. That becomes a class issue. These wee guys, the reason that they're getting free bus passes is the price of getting on a bus is expensive as fuck. Like, it's really expensive. What is it now for a day saver? £5, £4? And it's like, that's not the answer to it. Like, cutting off bus passes and what you got to do. But then they'll steal a motorbike to get up the tune. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so it's the same thing. Like, why do we not run mechanics courses in places like Niddrie and Muirhouse? Like, why is there no like community resource centres? Like, how can you have places like Edinburgh College? And I taught there, so I'm not even doing this from an ignorant point of view. Like, I remember I managed to get them all sitting in the council offices. I can't remember if Cammy Day was there, but it was the same, like, different third sector organisations. And it was like, why can we not get 2 motorbikes, strip them down, and get a mechanic in to teach them, to give them something that you can then say, I can take that away if you choose that life. But at the moment, they've got nothing to lose. And that's part of the problem. That's why I say, like, say in places, somebody like Niddrie. I've worked with the wee guys doing a Niddrie when they were coming out of Pullman. And some of them were fucking great wee rappers. They just want to do a music video. They just want to make a song. Like, that's no, you didn't need like loads and loads and loads of lottery funding for that, but you do need people with lived experience in these areas teaching and educating, and that becomes positive male role models. And if all your role models are the opposite of that, then why would you do any different?
Totally. It seems that it seems that this is the FireworX night. It's become, in some ways, an opportunity for some of these cats to actually be seen and heard. It's their moment where they say, well, we're here too. You know, we're in this town and we're pretty much completely ignored, and we're not supported in any way whatsoever. There's no way that we feel connected to the city anymore. And ironically, that actually goes across the board as well. It's not just people in the schemes who feel disconnected from the city in terms of what the city is. The city's become basically a prostitute for tourism and commercial interests, and so it has, and so much wasted money. I mean, for example, if you look, how much money have they wasted on these cycling infrastructure and everything around the town? They've made an arse of the town, they made a mess of the town as well with that, you know. But they're just pouring millions and millions of pounds into infrastructure projects at the expense of people and communities.
Well, look, if you look at a documentary I made years and years ago called The Last Stand of the Muirhouse Rebel, and it was old Stan.
I've seen that.
I don't even know if he's still alive.
A great film.
But like, if you look at him, like, he was holding out. But like, Edinburgh, all our fucking families have been displaced, and we can't get hooses next to each other anymore. And that's because of immigration and the way that the mid-market rents have came up. And that's no like, oh, we shouldn't have immigration, because we should have immigration. But we should also have priority needs within the council. Like, the council are the biggest fucking mafia known to man. Like, they are the gangsters. Edinburgh Council, they are the gangsters. Have you seen the way people get treated through temporary accommodation, especially men? Lassies get treated shit. But if you're a guy seeking a duty of care for Edinburgh Council, it is disgusting. And that's part of our drug deaths. That's part of our mental health problems. That's part of our failed society. But these guys stand up like Cammy Day there, talking about new measures, new punishments, new this. But they're also complicit in it. And that means, like, when they took away the old Pennywell, the old Muirhouse, the old Niddrie, and then they placed them in mid-market rents, the mid-market rents weren't for the people who actually existed there beforehand. So that means that they're outpriced in their own area and then moved to other areas. And what that means is, like, the problem is now removed and put into other places. Like, we should have, like, immigration. We should have foreigners coming into this country, working their arses off, doing their thing. Like, I'm no fucking Tommy Robinson here. Like, I absolutely believe that we should have a kind and compassionate and empathetic look at refugees, etc., and stop all the bullshit and all the hating on them. But if we can treat that type of individual and that type of family with empathy and compassion, we can also do that with our own. It doesn't have to be, why does a serviceman no get, and this is part of this. Believe it or no, the wee guys doing the fireworks thing and doing the rioting is part of this, because it's about abandonment, it's systematic failures and no accountability. That's part of the problem.
Totally. The council have literally just removed the entire Ed Index listing as well. They've actually removed the entire social housing listing now. You can't even go on it. That's the contempt that they've actually got for the communities. I mean, the council really, to call them a failure would be an understatement, you know. And they're cross-party, and they've failed the city in the most astronomical way. And people really need to wake up to this. And I think that there's been too much deference for too long for people just being apathetic and allowing the political parties and the political class to take hold of the organising of our society and the organisation of our local government. And the failure is there for us to see. And these incidents, for example, you know, when we're seeing what's happening, I hate to say it, but I think it's only going to get worse.
It will, and like, for me, we've talked about this before, but they've killed class consciousness. They've killed any rebellion. They've killed any critical, any upright activist movement. Like, if you see Muirhouse in the 80s and you go down to Screen Education and you look at the archive videos, it was like Muirhouse against racism. There was fucking hundreds and whatever, how many people out in the streets protesting at this and protesting at that. When was the last protest that you've seen in a scheme, apart from to remove a paedophile for a house from one end, Edinburgh to the other end? Like, there isn't that community organisation now, because it's such a threat that when somebody like me comes along and makes supply and demand, that's a movie that was made when they were told that we can't hang around in groups of three. Like, I went, fuck that, and ended up getting like 40 people together, and they were saying, yeah, there's COVID there. I had nothing to do with COVID. Absolutely nothing to do with COVID. So for me, like, there needs to be more of a fight back. Like, for example, so Muirhouse is the new Muirhouse now, right? So they build a new shopping centre. What's the first thing they do? They put a bookies next to the fucking school. And then they go, why do we have a gambling problem? I know, let's create all these charities around fixing this gambling problem, but we will not hold the property developers to account and say you should be put in the jail for 6 months. That's a bookies next to a school. That's a chemist next to the school. Like, the normality of this is fucking incredible. So who's the gangsters? Oh, it's the drug kingpins. No, it's fucking not. That's what the papers have you believe. People are surviving the only way they know how. Because you create the black market, an economy comes around the black market. Ban fireworks, the prices of fireworks go up and they go into the hands of the other people, and the economy runs like that. Ban alcohol, the alcohol becomes fucking counterfeit and then sold like that. Ban drugs, drugs go through the roof. Like, I'm the one that's crazy, though.
Let's take a couple of comments here. Somebody says, it's a complicated question and answer, no doubt, but parenting surely is right up there for solutions. When I was a kid, I went to organised displays with my family. I'm a parent, they're primarily my responsibility. What I'm trying to say is some of the kids are victims, really, piss parents that don't care enough.
So, let me see this. When I was a kid, family.
Is that there? Did
I'm just reading it now. Right, so even that word, piss parents, like, it's no piss parents, it's generational trauma. Not all parents suffer for this trauma, but there's a massive amount of them that are absolutely written off. And I think that's the struggle. Like, we have problems with addiction in these communities. We have problems with alcoholism in these communities, and that's part of the reason that we have kids running around mental, is because the parents aren't supported enough. The design of the services are punitive towards the parents, so they have between 8:30 in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon to go to appointment after appointment after appointment. Middle class people do not have to suffer the same consequence of these appointments. If you miss this appointment, this benefit's affected. If you miss this appointment, this is affected. Oh, by the way, we want you to come into the school on Wednesday to speak to us. I can't. I've got to go to this appointment, that appointment, and I'm on 20 different prescriptions. And that, the prescriptions in these communities is part of the problem. Our local GPs have become executioners. So the kids are on fucking all these ADHD medications. The parents are on the consequences of our disastrous methadone programs. The fucking... that is part of the problem. It's not piss parents. It's the abandonment and systematic failure of these parents and these parents' parents. So the grandparents of these kids have been failed. And that's part of our problem. And that's what I mean about, you have to look at this in a historical context over the last 15, 20, 30 years. Like, how did we get here? Because they've removed the notion of working class pride. And they've done that through the prescriptions, they've done that through the services, they've done it through all that stuff that just makes people just become slaves now.
And the solution is inevitably, as you say, like a pharmacological one that makes somebody else money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why the fuck have we not legalised cannabis? Not decriminalised it, legalised it. So you can have places where the weed isn't flushed, where the weed has different varieties. And I've just been to Thailand, every shop that you go to, it's got all these educational elements around cannabis. Here we go, this is Stardog, this is a flavour, and it's all the same. Smoke it, and you can't get a habit on it. It's so disinformation. But at the same time,
it's also the iron law of prohibition, where inevitably the strongest contraband becomes the one that everybody's gravitating towards. You know what I mean? So there's no sense of kind of there's no range of substance there. It's just always the hardest thing that kind of finds its way onto the street.
Which is why our governments still speak like they're in the Third Reich, and our media speak like they're in Chicago's gangbusters. Like the language is adopted from these. Like any fool with a book can tell you this shit. That's why it's easier to bring the fight to these people and as if it's the IRA, do you know what I mean? Or these gangbusters and all this sensationalism that comes with the police in, and it's control. A lot of it's about control.
Yeah.
And the system isn't broke. The system works fucking amazingly well for certain people. Like the system is not broke. Then they let them fool you. And there's no cost of living crisis either. These bastards are squeezing as much as possible. There is no cost of living crisis. Like, that's a lot of bullshit. That's just a word that they're putting on. There wasn't austerity. This stuff is forced poverty.
Definitely, I agree with that. Tell me about supply and demand. You've made you're a filmmaker of considerable talent, Gary, and I was delighted to have come to the premiere of the second instalment of Supply and Demand, which was the first one was great, the second one was fantastic. It can be watched online. Tell me about what it's like making a film like that, because you're one thing to touch upon here, which I think is worth discussing, is there's a lot of talent in the scheme that is, in fact, in my opinion, if you look at something that I'm really into over the last few years is Scottish rap and hip hop, and there's just incredible artists in Scotland they're completely under the radar, but they get more views on their videos than some of these Creative Scotland funded artists who've had 50 grand to go away and do something. They've got 500 views, and you've got Scottish rap artists with hundreds of thousands of views all over the world. There's exceptional talent in that scene, but this is again a class issue in terms of where the funding ends up, especially when it comes to the arts. But you had made Supply and Demand with no funding from the state. It was you sourced that, you made it off your own back, and you sourced some sponsors and what have you, I think, and you ended up making a production that knocks many funded productions out the park. Tell me about that.
Well, I've been making movies for 20 years now, and I think when you learn to make a movie under say Danny Boyle, you learn to respect the craft, and you learn to be able to execute the craft when needed. And for me, Supply and Demand, I was in a homeless hostel in Pilton, I was in a homeless temporary accommodation in Pilton, in the most shittiest house imaginable, absolutely fucking Charles Dickens'd up, with my kids, single father at the time, with the kids, and I needed to do something. I needed to make something, create something, because if I didn't make or create something, I'd have been the first one selling drugs, I'd have been the first one back to my old ways, and that wasn't acceptable for me as a man and as a parent. I need to find new ways to express myself and to live. So I ended up getting a group of guys together. I got Phil, spoke to Phil. He was taking me under his wing with the boxing and stuff like that.
Phil Coppola, actor, boxer, just extraordinaire.
General good cunt, to be honest with you, just one of life's good guys.
Definitely.
His gym's amazing, and that energy that he puts out and stuff like that, reminds me of certain people. He's just an amazing energy. But for me, having these guys, I got loads of hard laddies, loads of people who are very capable with their fists into a room, and they use their imagination, and I taught them to act over the course of a couple of years. And then eventually what happened, I met Jimmy Boyle's ex-wife in what the fuck do you call it, Inverleith. I went to meet this woman. She was a nun, she loved my music, believe it or not. She messaged me, she says, I'm an ex-nun from Northern Ireland, I really like your music. She's about 70-year-old or something, and I met this woman, and she was just had this beautiful energy about her, and she says, I'll try and help you out. So I basically applied to her trust fund for part one. After 4 years, we made part one, had a bit of money to make part one, and we had by that time we had a really good camera crew. I say crew, we had a really good camera operator, had beautiful, just a great cinema photographer, and by that time, because I'd spent so much time working with the guys, they all know how to act for camera by the time that we actually executed it. So we developed the storylines of MI5 or MI6's role in the war on drugs, which is a thing that we didn't even speak about in this country. We also know that in America the CIA are complicit in destroying black families, and I just thought to myself as a writer, are the security services involved in importing cocaine and heroin into this country? I don't know, I'm not asking the question in case I end up getting fucking taken away. So it was just a hypothetical thing. So I just found it interesting as entertainment, instead of making it loads of scheme cunts stealing motorbikes, to involve police, security services, and gangsters and fucking mafia.
There's a bit of a David Simon element to it.
Yeah, well, the Wire was my complete inspiration.
Yeah.
So the first one was done like that, and then the second one, I was abused in care when I was a kid, and they gave me $100 grand, and I was like, fuck it, might as well make a film. So I put my own money for being abused in care, the compensation claim for the Scottish government. I made a movie. Only because
you made a great movie as well with it, yeah, definitely.
But only because I know that's not what they wanted. Like, they didn't want somebody like me making cinema that holds society not to account, but just reflects real society, and that's the power in films for me. That's the power in movies.
Something I noticed when I went to the premiere, and a lot of the actors and the people were there that were involved in it, and it was an amazing experience to be there. There was an amazing community vibe. There was a real sense that people, they were proud to see themselves. It looked good, it sounded good. The whole thing was beautifully put together, and but really, being in that room was a real privilege, just to see how enthusiastic everyone was and how committed they were, and it kind of shows you. I think that. This is a side to the scheme that they don't even understand exists, really, to be honest.
No, and how many times were we shut down in the process? Like, I have been shut down more than any filmmaker in Scotland. Like, that is a fucking fact. If somebody's been shut down more than me, I would like to meet them. Like, that was incredible. Like, they were trying to charge me, they were shutting down the productions, they were following us about the place.
And this was because it was being filmed during COVID, was it? Was that some of it?
No, it was because we never asked for permission.
Right, okay.
And I says, well, wait a minute. If I'm shooting in your house, and every cunt in your house is helping me out making a film, why do I need to ask for permission for Drylor Police Station? Who gives you the right to supervise our lives that much? The CCTV towers, the fucking, the constant surveillance, like that's how I live. That's how I used to live. I didn't live there anymore, but like, that's how I used to live. And that's how people today still live. It's just that I make movies.
There's a few comments here, Gary. Just look here. I think on the weed not legalised recreationally because medical weed from private GPs will be a bigger cash cow from a select group. I also am aware of the fact I think Britain's actually the biggest exporter.
Yeah, with Theresa May's ex-husband that used to sit on the fucking board.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is quite astounding. It's quite phenomenal. Ali Arpignon was a good wee. Sorry, it was a good wee community when I lived there. Oh, I think this is Wishaw. Same as Wishaw, where I grew up. Generational neglect from when they shut down the mines and the steelworks. Yeah, when they atomised the working class communities and crushed them. This is where the rot really started.
Yes.
It was a good wee community when I lived there. Fond memories of the bonfire on the green in front of all the houses. Penny for the guy. Matty Ross, what a legend, Gary. Thanks so much for coming on and speaking so honestly and powerfully. Your voice is one that needs to be held. Respect. Miguel Oliver, Gary is such a powerful and insightful speaker, always been a great guest, comrade. I've lost my loose connections here. Gary, you are inspirational. Fantastic. And I think you're looking to maybe channel some of that inspiration into a new avenue. I think you're making a decision politically in terms of how you're looking at the situation. It's motivated you to take some significant.
I just think, like, I was thinking about running for politician for Leaf in Edinburgh North, just because, like, why the fuck no? Like, why the fuck no? Like, I just think there needs to be more people like me with lived experience for an underrepresented group that can challenge and like at least make a bit of a difference. And that'll only come. But my problem is everybody who I would want to vote for me isn't on the voters roll, and it's a struggle to get them on the electoral roll because the distrust between that society and officialdom. So like my challenge would have to be to maybe look at places like Brazil and South America or whatever and figure out how to do grassroots campaigning around just getting people to vote. I mean, I think I was looking at Donald Trump when he got Elon Musk to run a $1 million competition thing where he would give $1 million a day to people who just became on the voters roll in certain states, and there needs to be stuff like that here. I'm not saying £1 million, but like there needs to be initiatives. But like if somebody like me was going to run for Leaf in Edinburgh North, I would need a fucking hand for people who have been involved in politics and putting a team together. But like it'd be quite easy to stand on redesigning services, for fairer rent, for like a range of stuff. But that's kind of where my head's going next. And
I think the thing is, obviously, with the way the system is, you know, it's deliberate. Like the attack, the disenfranchisement of the electorate is a deliberate tactic. The existing political class, the existing political parties, they actually like low turnouts and a low electoral base to work with. Basically, they don't want that. You know, that's why they smashed the working classes. That's why they smashed the vote. And now, when they've even to make it even more prohibitive with voter ID and all these other measures, this is a class attack. This is class war. This is the problem. The problem, obviously, that we have in society and culture, especially over the last decade or so, where we saw the rise of US imported identity politics, where we focused on identity and categorised class as an identity as well, which is a ridiculous thing to have happen. You know, suddenly somebody can identify as being working class. You know what? Because you'll get an argument from certain middle class political types who will argue that because you work and sell your labour, that entitles you to call yourself working class. That's not the type of working class that we understand. When we understand what the cultural implications of being working class are, and when you live in a scheme, you've always lived in the scheme, your family's from the scheme or otherwise, you know, and the problems that are inherent with that.
That's one of the reasons that the Scottish referendum didn't work, because they tried to create socialism for a coffee shop, and it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And you didn't ask for your country the way they were doing it before. They were too polite. They were far too polite. You demand your fucking country. You didn't ask for it. You demand. And I think like that's the problem with this country, is that we're too sheepish. We're no one to upset anybody. The last real men that stood were the miners and the poll tax rioters. They were the last real people for me. The rest of it's been false. The moment that we let them invade Iraq and just have carte blanche to do whatever we want, we end up with situations with Palestine where we design missile guidance chips and dry law that get dropped on fucking children, and we're part of a genocide. Like, we are the Nazis, make no mistake. Like, we are part of that thing. When you learned about World War II and you says, how did the Germans stand by and let this happen? Well, we're they cunts now.
Absolutely.
Best believe that.
Absolutely.
We're they cunts now, because our politicians have designed that apathy so much that you're like, what's the point in voting? And don't get me wrong, I used to be that person and possibly still am that person, but now I'm like, I can't live with myself and no getting on the electoral roll and no trying to vote, but it's just that none of these people are people that I want to vote for. So that's why I'm like, well, is it possible for somebody like me? And don't get me wrong, when I say lived experience, I've also fucking been to university. Like, my lived experience isn't just about addiction and trauma. My lived experience is about people. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely, no, definitely. You bring a wide range of experience to that, you know. But these people can't communicate with some of the communities that you can, and that's the difference, you know. Let me just check. We've got Katrina says, I've founded a charity called Parents Advocacy and Rights. It's so complex. We need supportive community services, which we don't have. Again, Gary is 100% right. Thanks, Gary. Great insight. Yeah, listen, absolutely brilliant. I loved you having dropped in this morning for a chat. I'm going to play the trailer for Supply and Demand. Will you come back and keep us updated on what you're doing with this then, if you're going to be running for Northern Leaf? Not a problem.
And what's your current project? You told me you're working on something in Barlinnie.
I'm working with a charity called Cisco, and it's the same again. It's like a completely underfunded project and us trying to accomplish quite a lot, but there's been a 40% increase and suicides in prison in Scotland, and I just felt like when the lassie told me that she'd made a play and asked me if I could make a film, Gemma, and I just thought to myself, how can I know? So I went through there, and I've been working with this amazing group of guys for Glasgow. In fact, I also have a fight at Portobello Town Hall on the 16th of November, so if anybody wants a ticket, they can come and see me fight. So if you didn't like anything that I've said, there's a chance that I could get knocked out. So you could come and buy a ticket to see me getting knocked out.
I forgot to touch on this.
If you like me, then you can come and see me knock somebody else out. So it's a win-win situation. But the guys from Glasgow are coming through. So I just thought to myself, I was thinking about this last night. If you are an Edinburgh guy and people from Glasgow are coming to support you, it's a bit like getting hood love, where you're a white guy and the black guys love you. That's the way I felt. I just felt that's some hood love when the Glaswegians are coming through to support a Chukta.
You're creating some sort of cross Ouija Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Yeah, definitely. This is pioneering work that you're making there in that respect. I forgot to mention this. You've the last few years you've sunk yourself right into. What is describe the stuff, the fighting style that you do? What is it?
Well, it's called Muay Thai.
Muay Thai. That's right. Yeah.
And for me, I can't claim to be a fighter. I do it for my mental health. I was really lucky a few years ago when I got clean that Ian Mitchison, a guy that I know, ex-kickboxer, sort of taught me a wee bit about boxing and kickboxing, and then Phil sort of sharpened the skills a wee bit and taught me a wee bit about boxing, and somebody doing Pilton helped me out with all the strength and conditioning and stuff like that as well. And
yeah, I saw you dragging
tyres,
tractor tyres and that.
Aye, repentance. But like, for me, these are the real people, and these are the real these are the real people in these worlds. So like, I went to Muay Thai and at Hanneman and Leaf, and they've just moved to 60 Jane Street, so they've just moved, and they're just an amazing organisation, and there's just a mixture of people. And me at 46-year-old having my first like Muay Thai fight has been my one and done, to be honest with you. But I just think Phil says to me, when you were younger you were flunk to the wolves, and when you're older you came back leading the pack, and that only happens, and that championship mentality only happens for being around guys like that who are ranked fighters, and it's just an amazing, humbling experience for me every day when I'm in their company.
I've seen the discipline and commitment you put in. It's impressive. It's extremely impressive. Do you know who your opponent is?
I don't, and I'm not even that bothered, to be honest with you. It's just, I'm not even bothered if it sounds daft. I'm not even bothered if I win or lose. I just want to go there and put on a display my Muay Thai and make it be beautiful.
And is this your first public fight then? This
is my first. Well, aye.
Well, when we say that in a ring.
Aye, I've been through so many fights. You know what I mean? And even when I was younger, I'd been through traumatic brain injury and stuff like that, and the doctor says you shouldn't even header a ball again for the rest of your life. So for me to be able to compete full rules Muay Thai, that's a massive accomplishment, and also to come from addiction and run with the sports aspect of that now, the transitional aspect of that. But like I don't know, like my pal's coming back from Thailand soon, and he does jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, and he was talking about maybe trying to do something in North Edinburgh. But like for me, I think you should have places like that free and publicly funded, or have guys in Nudry and Muirhouse and give them fucking money.
This is toxic.
That stops the shite.
You're promoting toxic masculinity, Gary. I don't think that.
I'm a man. I love fighting. Like, I fucking love fighting. Like, fighting is like, all my life I've been told, do not fight, and now I get a tap on the shoulder and a wink for the coach for fighting. Like, that mace wee guys that are fucked, they need to be fighting. They need to be training, because fighting is not about ego. You need to lose your ego in order to fight. These wee guys that are all running around stabbing each other are so fucking scared to lose a square go these days. That's part of our problem with this generation. It's easier to stab somebody than what it is to train for an hour, 2 hours a day. So you need more guys, not like me, but you need more guys in these communities to teach jiu-jitsu, to teach Muay Thai, to teach martial arts, because when you go to Thailand and you look at their poverty, Muay Thai is a route out. And for me, fighting, like, the real heroes for me now are the football players. It's guys like Chris Bungard, guys like fucking wee Brian Hislop, like, it's Jason Easton. It's the martial arts guys that you can aspire to, because you can come from poverty and still make it out, and there isn't a lot of things that you can do that with these days, but you need to support more clubs to run in these areas so it's not a funding issue. And that means that on the 5th of November that there's community involved in these places where there is a diversionary thing, but it comes from within.
For real, for real. Got somebody says here, where can I see Supply and Demand Part 1? Is that on YouTube, is it?
Yeah, it's all on YouTube, the Gaff Media channel.
Gaff Media, right, well I'll put a link to that in the comments. I'm going to skip to the trailer while Gary gets himself sorted out. Thanks so much for joining me for the first What the X live guest, Gary. We'll put up information as to the fight. I'll definitely come along and attend that as well. Anything else you want to say before we go now?
Viva la Revolution!
Viva la Revolution. Right, cheers Gary, thanks very much.
Thank you,
coming
bro.
to the trailer now.
Take this. Back to this.
Shit isn't it fucking funny, like?
Go on all units, backup requesting Maguire's Yard Leaf. Fucking move!
Surely they've got enough evidence to take Charlie then by now.
We want them all. Playing a game.
You know, Charles, one of my wee chickens are going to be...
Fucking pricks.
There's your toad. You understand?
Right, I'm back. I didn't realise it was 10 past 11. I was enjoying talking to Gary so much there. Time got completely away with us, which I suppose is a good thing. I'm going to leave you all now as a result of that, and I'll be back on Monday where we can catch up on some other things that have been going on. Before I do go, on Sunday at 1 o'clock at the Tesco's at Collington Mains Drive, we will be having a protest against Sheila Gilmore's genocide complicit Labour Party. So please attend that if you're able, when we're going to do a wee protest march there on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And I'll be back on Monday morning at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock on Sunday, and I'll be back on 10 o'clock on Monday morning for What the X as usual. But that's it. That's all we've got time for.